Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Tuesday, September 6th. I'm Khalil Kato with the details. The health threat posed by non-communicable diseases, or NCDs, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines should be handled with the same aggression as the COVID-19 pandemic. This was the view expressed by Minister of Health and Wellness, Sinclair Prince, during his address to mark the launch of Caribbean Wellness Month. Caribbean Wellness Month is a regional collaborative response to the NCDs, which was conceptualized by the CARICOM heads of government. Minister Prince says all stakeholders should expand the efforts to screen and manage NCDs, and he adds the plan of the ministry is to intensify the response to fighting these diseases.
I've already started preliminary discussions with the senior members of the ministry to see how we can ramp up our response in 2023. I think we should, in 2023, from now going forward, especially in 2023, that budget cycle, we should pay a lot of attention to these NCDs, and we should respond very aggressively, because we can. The way we have responded to COVID-19 shows us that we can respond if we wanted to these particular diseases. And I think all of us, the patients, the health workers, the rest of the community, including the media, should come on board and redouble our efforts to deal with these NCDs, because they are killing people.
Mr. Prince says NCDs are affecting a large part of the Vincentian population and draining the resources of government.
It is important, but it's also interesting that it is an issue which we are not dealing with in the way we should. We think it's an old people disease, so we don't bother. I think it is not. Look at the statistics, and you'll hear more about that, I hope, during the course of the meeting. How it is affecting people, how our financial resources are being drained as a result. Families are suffering. It is creating poverty. There are people who can't work. So we have to look at it as a major issue here in the country, and it must be tackled by all of us. It is a collective response that we are looking for.
Minister of Tourism Carlos James has expressed confidence that the destination St. Vincent and the Grenadines will return to pre-pandemic visitor arrival numbers. The minister notes the sector was significantly affected by the global COVID-19 pandemic and the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. Minister James says 2019 was a record year for tourist arrivals in SVG, and a recent study on international travel shows that 60 to 70% of North American visitors are now more comfortable with travel. Speaking on WeFM's Issues at Hand program, Minister James says over the next 12 to 24 months, arrival numbers are set to increase.
There has been an uptick. The confidence of especially during the period of vaccination, a lot of persons they were vaccinated and felt a bit more comfortable traveling, and we continue to see that number move back to pre-pandemic period, but we're still a bit off from our pre-pandemic figures. 2019 was one of the record years we had here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in terms of tourism numbers. But we're hoping that we can quickly get back to those numbers. But I imagine within the next 12 to 24 months, we will easily see an uptick, which will take us back to pre-pandemic levels.
Minister James explains some airlines are facing challenges with staff shortages, which resulted in limited regional and international flights being offered. He reveals that SVG can expect an increase in airlift from Miami and Canada, as well as other destinations by early 2023.
And we've seen the numbers out of Miami in terms of connectivity looking quite pretty good, in fact, for American Airlines. And they've just recently announced that they'll be putting on daily scheduled flights from Miami as of March next year. Air Canada, they will be certainly looking at ramping up their services when they come November, though they may still have some challenges with crew and personnel in terms of human resource. We're hoping to see additional carriers coming into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And of course, they will make that announcement at the time when they see fit. There's still negotiations ongoing with a number of other carriers, JetBlue and other international carriers who may have an eye on St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a new destination.
On Thursday, the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Transformation, Forestry and Fisheries handed over equipment to fishers at the Kaliakwa Fisheries Center as part of the fleet expansion program. The handover also included a prize-giving ceremony for the winner of the Fisherman's Day Largest Catch competition, Earl Medford, who received a 75-horsepower Yamaha outboard engine. Speaking at the ceremony, Area Representative and Minister of Finance Camilo Gonzalez notes fishermen will now be more equipped for the demand of lobster catching expected this year with the fish pot materials which they received.
Market next year, now this year, for lobster would be greater because you will have the hotels coming back on stream because they were down for COVID. You would have rainforests purchasing lobster. You would have the yachties and you would have your regular markets where you normally sell lobster to the general public. So that we thought that if the market is bigger, but the number of fishermen is roughly the same, those fishermen should catch more lobster this year. And we thought that the best way to assist would be to provide you with the raw materials to make the lobster pot. We had some discussions. Minister Caesar had some discussions. There was a time when we brought some of you know, we brought some sample lobster pots to see if you like them. Some of you said, well, you ain't really like this, you ain't really like that. So we said the best thing to do would be for us to get the materials for you and you to build the lobster pots the way that you want to build them.
Minister Gonzalez says there is a great potential for growth in SVG's fisheries sector.
But when we look at the amount of fish that was landed 5 years ago and 7 years ago, and compared to the amount of fish landing now, is more than double. When we look at the amount of money that is derived from fishing 5 years ago and 10 years ago, is more than double. And we know that with players like here in Rainforest, the players in Oya, the players in Beckway, and new players coming on, there is a larger and larger market for you to sell your products. And so the constraint is not going to be, I wonder if I can get it sell, because there will be somebody to buy it. The constraint will be how much you can catch and the price that you want to call for your products. It wasn't too long ago when you'd be driving up here in lobster season and you would see fisher folk flagging you down on the roadside with lobster in their hand. Then we get somebody, and the price falling. You know that. But now, there's somebody over there who will buy them for you. There's somebody in Beckway. There's somebody in Oya. And of course, there's the general public.
The Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force Fire Department has responded to 112 fires to date. Speaking on NBC Radio on Monday, the Fire Chief, Superintendent of Police Joel James, says house fires are on the increase, adding that he believes some homeowners are being negligent.
They will leave electrical equipment plugged in. For example, as I stated some time ago, persons would have like electrical fans and they're not working properly. You have to spin that blade sometimes in order to get it moving. Yes. So, and these things would cause fires. Some persons would leave other electrical equipment like mechanics and other trade persons. Just recently we had an unfortunate situation at Pembroke where someone would have left piece of electrical equipment plugged in, and after that would have been energized, it would become very hot, and if it's close to another combustible, then you would find that area would ignite, and he would have lost an entire workshop, all his tools and all that. Very unfortunate.
Although the hurricane season is in its peak, SOP James cautions Vincentians not to burn dry bush and other material, especially on hot days, as this can quickly result in fires getting out of control.
What we have to realize, there are persons in the community out there where you're setting these fires who are asthmatic. There are persons who, for example, yesterday being a Sunday, when you burn these dry bushes, you have the heat rising. And when it rises with dry, burnt embers. And these embers would be high up in the air. And when they would fall. If persons have their windows open, it would go all over their houses. So we are asking you to desist from burning these dry bushes in your backyard. I cannot emphasize more. I have done it before and I would still continue to do it. Please avoid burning dry shrubs, especially in the dry season. Now, this is the hurricane season, but we are not out of the woods because fires still occurs in the wet season.
And we also have dry days in the wet season.
We have dry days in the wet seasons as well. So that is why I'm cautioning you to desist from this practice.
Superintendent, I want to ask you this.
The historic Fort Charlotte site is set to undergo extensive restoration and upgrades as part of an initiative, a regional initiative funded by the World Bank. Currently, the World Bank is in its design phase under the OECS Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project. The changes include a display area for the reenactment of historical events, a complete restoration of the courtyard, as well as amenities for visitors. The total cost of the restorative work amounts to approximately $2 million. Minister of Tourism Carlos James says the restoration of Fort Charlotte is part of a wider initiative to rehabilitate a number of forts across the country and to enlighten visitors about the fort's history. Minister James also identified other recreational sites that are scheduled for renovations as well, including upgrading facilities at the Brighton Salt Pond, Indian Bay, and improving the boardwalk at Villa. Work on Fort Charlotte is scheduled to begin in late November of this year and expected to be completed in September of 2023. In police news, a 23-year-old laborer of Diamonds Village was arrested and charged on Friday with wounding a student of the Georgetown Secondary School. According to investigations, Lamont George stabbed the student with the scissors under the left eye during an altercation which occurred on August 31st in Georgetown. George was also charged with damaging a shirt belonging to the student. In another incident, Becky Swift, a 24-year-old laborer of Freeland, was arrested and charged last Friday with the offense of wounding. Swift is accused of chopping a 50-year-old farmer of the same address about his body with a cutlass. The accused appeared before the serious offences court to answer to the charge and pleaded not guilty. He was granted bail in the sum of $1,500 with one surety. Police also arrested and charged Tuckron Jacobs, a 23-year-old farmer of Lomans Windward, with the offense of grievous bodily harm. Investigations revealed that on June 17th at Lomans Windward, at about 10:30 p.m., the accused inflicted grievous bodily harm on a 69-year-old farmer of the same address by chopping him about his head and body with a cutlass. Jacobs was jointly charged along with Kieron Boye, a 24-year-old laborer also of Lomans Windward, with the offense of damage to property that valued in total 2,020 EC dollars. Both accused appeared in the serious offences court on Friday to answer to the charges. Jacobs pleaded guilty to both charges and was sentenced to 3 years for grievous bodily harm and 9 months for damage to property. Both sentences will run concurrently. However, Boye pleaded not guilty and the matter was transferred to the Bayabu Magistrates Court.